Whenever you're ready.
Good. All right. Good morning. We'll call the coordinating committee meeting of the Erie MPO from Wednesday, June 21st to order. Welcome everybody here. At the beginning, we have an opportunity for public comment. We also have an opportunity at the end. Any public comment on the agenda items as of now? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March 8th coordinating committee meeting? Mr. Welko?
Second.
All right, Mr. Sayers. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. For those of you joining us online, it probably won't look much different, but we do have Brandon Leach in person. I did say that maybe we should put a TV frame around him or something like that so we would really actually recognize him, but want to welcome him in person to the MPO and to Erie. Great to see you. You brought Julia along as well?
Yep.
So
Brandon, we are real people.
Yeah. So please.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim. So there weren't many actions on the for the 2023 tips since the last meeting. We do have 2 administrative modifications I would just cover that are essentially deferring a project start for the SR 1013 bridge over I-86 project from federal fiscal year 2023 out to year 2026. And the Erie Highway Bridge line item was used as the balancing source for that. So to take the money out of 2026 from there into the project and then reversing it for 2023. If you go to the next item, that would be, I think on your packet would be the transit I'm sorry. Is it there? Oh, yeah, it's on the back side. The transit administrative modification, that was to add funding to the EMTA's project to replace paratransit buses. So we added a mix of federal 5310 funds, state 341 funding, and the local match in federal fiscal year 2023 to assist in replacing those buses that have reached their useful life. We also had a administrative modification as an informational item. This was taking money from the TAP reserve line item. It's a statewide line item to add to both the Erie downtown Erie active transportation project and the Union City Borough project. Both these had, I should say, it's a little complex for one action, but basically the Union City project had basically had money removed in 2023 and put in fiscal year 2025. So there was no gain in funding, and I was just moving it out to a later date. And then the downtown Erie project had $245,000 added in TAP funds in fiscal year 2023. And the TAP reserve line item was used as the source or balancing line item for both of those actions. So I can basically, those were all the administrative modifications. I'm willing to discuss if anyone has any questions about those, but if not, we can move on to the amendment.
If I don't think anybody has any questions for Brandon as of now.
Yeah, sure. And Emily, did you want to talk about that a little too, or I noticed we're both in the agenda there, so
I wanted to go over the e-ballot results.
Sure.
Since we had 2 amendments since the last coordinating committee meeting. One was to federalize some state funded projects, and the second one was to add funding to the Bayfront in the 12-year TYP, so in the outer years of the TIP. So I wanted to share the e-ballot results. Both amendments passed by e-ballot. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew what the results were of that vote and entered into the public record. If anyone has any questions or would like to change their votes at this time, they can do so. And there's the other one. Yep.
Looks like everybody voted in favor, correct?
Yes, I think Ron abstained
already
from the Bayfront vote, so the one before that.
Okay. Move that in or accept.
Oh, okay. That works. All right. Well, if no questions.
Was there? Nope. I guess not. Sounded like somebody maybe was chiming in online. Nothing. Okay, Emily, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. All right. Would you like to move on to the next one? The next. All right. Did you want to add anything to that, Brian?
If people would like, I can cover the actual fiscal constraint chart for that, but I mean, since we already voted for it, it's really a moot point, but
all right,
we could just go on. I could just highlight that it was to fully fund the project for advertisement. And we
the Bayfront.
Yes, right? The Bayfront. And so we did that in the outer years of the tip. So it didn't involve necessarily a FHWA approval, but since it was a large increase, that's why we decided to have it come to the MPO for a vote. So, is there any questions? We can move on.
All right. Any questions of Brandon or Emily? Okay. Before we move on, I just want to note we got quite a turnout here and online, so it's great to see so many people. We have several representatives from PennDOT. Brian and Mark and Courtney, thank you for joining us. So yeah, awesome turnout. So thank you very much. Moving on to Emily's show, agenda item number 2025, 2028 tip development.
Yes. Go down a few slides. There we go. So we are starting a new tip cycle. So 2025 to 2028, we update the tip every 2 years. So sometimes it feels like we just did this, but we're doing it again. So right now, a lot of you have reached out about projects to fund on the next tip, but PennDOT is still working through the cost estimates for the existing projects. So as everyone knows, inflation has gone up quite a bit. So a lot of the new funds that we'll be getting, even though we're seeing an increase, will likely go just to filling those gaps with inflation. I will say that we have a new funding source. We have this carbon reduction funds, this new federal funds that is new with IIJA. And over this 4-year cycle, we'll be getting $5,221,000 of carbon reduction funds from 2025 to 2028. So in the future, we'll have to have some discussions about how to program that and what the factors will be that projects will be ranked to receive that funds, how we're going to deal with that. So thinking of the carbon reduction funds, the next thing on the agenda is the local climate action plan from the city of Erie. And hopefully some of their process of thinking about climate will help the MPO prioritize these carbon reduction funds as we move forward.
Awesome. So Sarah and Jenny, the floor is yours.
I do have it on the computer. So you just go stop the share. And then go screen share. Oh, make this bigger. Yeah, screen share. Oh, is it open? Okay, go back. Go back to the desktop to the right. Okay. Open. All right. Do you want the comments up? Okay. You can get rid of the comments. And tools, and then go back to Zoom. All right, go down to the green. Oh, perfect, right there. All right, hit share. You want to minimize this. That little one. Okay, is it big enough?
Yeah.
All right.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Peelman, the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Erie, and this is Jenny Tompkins with Penn Future. And we're here to present today the city's process for creating a local climate action plan. Mayor Schember was in a meeting with Chris Nate from the DEP and mentioned this plan, and that's how we got involved with it in the beginning. But the local climate action plan program is a partnership between the DEP and the Penn State University. And it's also sponsored by the ECLEI, which is the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. To do a local climate action plan, we have ours broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 of the local climate action plan is getting greenhouse gas inventory data, getting the data to do a greenhouse gas inventory to determine where the most of your emissions are coming from. Phase 2 is doing things like community outreach and looking over developing policies and mapping and mostly talking to community folks. And then phase 3 will be where we actually develop the plan itself by putting it all together. Some of the reasons the city is interested in doing the local climate action plan is because there's definite climate changes that are affecting our city's environment. Our temperatures are rising, and the city of Erie was listed in the top 10 fastest warming cities in the entire nation, up there with like Phoenix, Arizona, and places in Texas, which is crazy to think that. But, and also because of the glacial ice and sea melting and sea levels rising, etc., we already have more 100-year flood storms happen more often, and droughts are happening longer and more frequently. So we can see signs that the environment does have changed. And again, these are just more ways there can affect people in our city. When it's too hot, people struggle with cooling down in their houses. If there's not enough trees on the street to help shade things, people have more asthma, there's more air pollution. There's all kinds of changes that go along with climate change that affect humans in general. These are just different types of greenhouse gases. I think this is on a national level. So you have carbon dioxide has the biggest effect. And so that's one of the reasons part of the planning process is to do an inventory of your, the greenhouse gases are basically from carbon dioxide emissions. And so that's why we do that inventory as the very first step, because we don't know how to make a plan to manage what we have until we determine what we have. So the students in phase 1 completed in 1 semester. They collected all the greenhouse gas emissions that they possibly could from lots of different sources. And this is the breakdown of what it came down to. So transportation emissions was actually the highest in the city of Erie at 30%. Then you have, you can see residential energy and industrial energy, then commercial energy, and then the smallest contributor was solid waste and wastewater. And since you're mostly interested in transportation, we have the transportation breakdown here for you. And it shows where we found a lot of the emissions coming from, like the breakdown of the 30% of the transportation emissions. As the sustainability director, I don't really know what all those things are. The inbound, or some of the inbound maybe and gasoline, but that's what we came up with. It also has the bus transit up there and railroad transportation. While we were gathering data for our plan, the one thing that is missing though is national fuel data. The students and the city were not able to get any data from national fuel. And then this is again just the overall pie chart. You can see how many Again, I'm very on this, but our captions on the bottom, but the yellow is the transportation again. Okay. And so the next steps, I'll let Jenny start taking over from here.
Great. So Sarah mentioned, actually, I'll start from the beginning. I have the privilege of wearing both hats, both roles that I play. I'm professionally the Penn Future Campaign Manager for Clean Water Advocacy. So all the work that I do promotes clean water in the Pennsylvania Lake Erie watershed. But I also happen to be in my personal time a member of the Environmental Advisory Council for the city of Meadville. And we have a climate action plan that I help implement my after hours, the ones that I do have when I'm not being an advocate, which are small. But I am speaking from both of those perspectives in my slides today, so you have some perspective on what it means for a municipality to implement a climate action plan and what it means to have a relationship with a transit authority in the proper area of transportation. So we'll go into both of those. But in the context of the city of Erie, Sarah mentioned that there are 3 phases. The city's embarking on phase 2, and that's an opportune time to be talking with all of you, as you are also going to be embarking on some key planning processes, particularly at the state level. And this is a perfect time to bring together all levels of government, of course, and your roles as municipalities. You can engage in the local climate action planning process, but as the MPO, there are roles that you could play in supporting the city, Erie County, should they choose to participate in a program like this, or other municipalities. So with all that being said, phase 2, as Sarah mentioned, is a lot of outreach, policy development, and sourcing and including information that takes into consideration equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, and Indigenous knowledge, which I think is an interesting part of Penn State's mission in supporting the schools planning efforts. And then putting it all together, completing the plan, public meetings, and outreach, things you're all familiar with as planners. Next slide, please. So how can municipalities participate? It's primarily municipalities that do the statewide program and have historically in the 5 or 6 rounds that have already been gone through when it was under DEP's direction. But Sarah did include contact information for both DEP and folks at Penn State if there are individual municipalities here that want to know more information about what the city's doing. Next slide, please. This is and I apologize about the formatting. I made this in a widescreen and PowerPoint. It did not play nicely with PDF. So we can send an updated version to Emily to make sure that some of these errors in formatting aren't present. But this is like the meat of the slide where I wanted to make sure I connected some dots for all of you, because this is what I do in my professional role, is trying to connect dots to promote water quality. Now we're going to think about,
very good at it.
I have some on here that I'm glad Emily mentioned, but I consider the agenda in coming up with this. So one thing that the MPO could do is participate in Sarah's phase 2, which is where she's going to be doing outreach and focus groups and talking to experts like you all in informing the city's plan. So that's like low-hanging fruit number 1, that is the ask of you all. Number 2, I know that you all have Federal Highway Administration planning funds that you set aside to complete streets municipal planning workshops. And I know that that's kind of in process based on county capacity, but that is a key area where you can engage to reduce emissions and start thinking about this from a policy level through ordinance development. We encourage the passage of complete streets ordinances across the Commonwealth for statewide advocacy. And it's encouraging that you all are going to be embarking on that. Creating letters of support or funding types of projects like this. It's not lost on me that EMT's UPWP application is next on the agenda. Of course, providing and lending your expertise and capacity toward efforts of others in the community, huge part of the role the MPO can do. I'm aware that the county also provided an application for the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Competitive Application. So I was thinking of that as an opportunity where your letter of support or demonstrated support in other ways can go a long way in some of the work that's happening. The EMTA is part of the Sustainable Transit for a Healthy Planet Challenge under the Biden administration, which is encouraging transit authorities and other groups to actually have their own climate action plans. So working with EMTA and envisioning that your planning for the carbon reduction rules that I have later on here actually aligns with what EMTA wants to do, and their synergy in allowing funding to move forward is a huge part how you can support this kind of action work. I also have been interested, and this is the longest acronym ever, but I like the PROTECT that we get to in the end. Promoting resilient operations for a transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation program, which is a new formula and competitive grant funding opportunity under the bipartisan infrastructure law. Pennsylvania is going to have to do its own planning. And as the Erie MPO, you can inform and make sure that Erie gets its fair share of that funding ultimately for Pennsylvania needing to do a climate resiliency plan. There's another term for it. Emily's the expert on this. I don't remember what they actually call that planning process, but that's going to be in progress. And I encourage you to talk to people like Sarah and other environmental experts to help inform what those projects might be. Because the more we can work together to scope projects, the more likely we might be in Erie to get a fair share of that funding. And lastly, the carbon reduction program, sorry, I mentioned it briefly, but Emily just alluded to the planning that's going to be happening. This is a great opportunity to consult with the city about the feedback they're getting on their planning to help inform what the MPO is going to do with the funding that we've been allocated. So I won't harp on those too much, but I think it's pretty clear that there's a lot you can do in aligning with the city and other municipalities and the efforts that they're doing. There's a lot of cooperation that could happen between levels of government here. All right, next slide. Okay, now I'm putting on my Meadville hat very briefly. So Meadville has this climate action plan through the same program that the city of Erie is doing in 2022. Just a title slide so we can pass through here. And I was going to talk a little bit about the process because Meadville's done and it's very similar to what the city of Erie has outlined. We did an emissions inventory. I wasn't part of this process. I took over after this and the publication of the plan in my role, but I wanted to speak to what we did in Meadville to the best of my ability. Meadville formed a local climate action planning team, which was a 10-person core planning team that met weekly at some points, bi-weekly, monthly, and saw the fruition of the plan through publication, and then handed it off to the Environmental Advisory Council that I'm now a member of. They did a lot of direct stakeholder outreach. I believe there were over 50 different stakeholders where they hold focus groups or structured interviews to inform the plan. And then ultimately went through a pretty rigorous public engagement process over 6 months or so in the warm months of the year. We could actually get out and table and have public presentations. And there were 7 different meetings for opportunities for people to weigh in and provide public comment on the draft. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to share what the sections are in the Meadville Climate Action Plan to give you some perspective, because the greenhouse gas inventory actually lined up quite differently from Erie. And you see that Erie doesn't have national fuel data, so keep that in mind in the breakdown of emissions that Sarah mentioned. Transportation is number 4 in the city of Meadville. So while we have a whole section in our plan dedicated to transportation, the share of our overall emissions is different from what the city has found. Next slide, please. And this is just giving a little bit of information about how in this 5 months or so that the Environmental Advisory Council has been formed, how we're thinking about transportation. We have a micromobility subcommittee of our 4 subcommittees, and the EAC is 7 volunteer resident members, but we have done consultation with other groups. I am not on the micromobility subcommittee either, so I apologize if you have additional questions. I can put you in contact with somebody. Yeah, so micromobility, they're really thinking, it's more like multimodal and micromobility, but they have been thinking about the bike share that CATA has. I don't know if you've all heard about that down in Meadville. They've also been thinking about opportunities for walkworks and encouraging multimodal transportation, particularly in the downtown core of the city. And then the other thing that they've been thinking about is the expansion of EV charging stations. There are some electrical upgrades happening in our central park in the city, the Diamond. And they're thinking about, is there a way to start putting in EV chargers while they're already doing an upgrade and an expanded capacity for the electrical grid there. And the market house that we have that also downtown recently had electrical upgrades. So they're kind of a number 2 spot to consider. Do they have the capacity to implement EV chargers sooner rather than later? So I give you just some perspective about what the committee's been working on. We do have worked closely with CATA. They have their own climate action plan, as I mentioned, similar to what EMTA would be embarking on with the federal program. So they were more than happy to have another ally and a capacity building group start to take on some of their goals and objectives already outlined in their plan. Next slide, please. This question slide, I really wanted a nice complete street in the background and you guys to be able to see our contact information. Unfortunately, that's not quite the case, but I'll leave this up for questions in case you want to reach out to Sarah or myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, at the city of Erie, we also are establishing an EAC, which is an Environmental Advisory Council, and the board members are about to be voted on. Some of them have been approved already, some haven't, and so we're also hoping that our newly formed Environmental Advisory Council can help with our goal in phase 2 and phase 3 of developing our plan and reaching out to the community. We're also working with partner groups like CRANE, the Climate Resilient Action Network of Erie, and a lot of climate outreach workshops. And again, with Jenny at Penn Future, you can see how knowledgeable she is, and that's why I asked her to present this with me.
I will mention that environmental advisory councils are not a new idea. Erie was the 161st EAC in Pennsylvania. And municipalities are allowed to create these bodies via ordinance, and it dates back to the 70s. The state actually gave that power to municipalities. So there can be a group of technical experts thinking about environmental matters within each municipality in Erie County.
And again, that was thanks to the efforts of Mayor Schember. A couple of the former mayors had informal like environmental task force to the mayor, but Mayor Schember wanted to get Erie to have a formalized committee that was established by ordinance, so they don't just end with turnovers in the administration, and it's a continuous thing from now on, which is good.
Great. Yeah, questions of Jenny or Sarah? If not specifically, we get your contact information, we'll reach out to you. I think maybe down the road, would you be interested in coming back and just give us an update, you know, whenever you're welcome to join us for sure.
Well, thank you for having us both today.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the 2022-2024 UPWP update. Emily, we need a couple votes here as well, right?
We do. So for those who at the Technical Advisory Committee meeting, you heard a nice presentation by Dave Robinson at EMTA about the public EV charging power study needs. Does anyone, yeah, you got it, perfect. Would you like to say anything more about that, Dave, since our last meeting?
Just real quickly for those that weren't here last time, as you all know, there's a lot of money out there right now to build EV charging stations and build infrastructure. But what we've determined is that before we even move in that direction, we want to know that the power is there for the long run. We're all aware of some of the issues that the city of Erie has had with its power grid over recent years. We have no intentions at this time, and I'm saying this strictly for PennDOT years, we have no intentions this time of doing electric buses. There are issues with electric buses that need to be looked at, safety issues, fire and explosion issues. But as you saw from the slide that Sarah shared, the largest portion of the greenhouse gases, at least in the city, come from gasoline, from residential individual uses of our vehicles. So what we're looking at is putting in EV charging stations. We have a new parking ramp that we're about to finish. We also have a new modal that has many parking places. What we want to do is determine through this study what the high-end capacity is in those two spaces for EV charging stations. It's one thing to put 2 or 3 in. It's another that in 5 or 6 years you might need 22. So we want to know that in advance to be ahead of the game. That'll set the baseline for what we do moving forward.
Great. Emily, do you want to then just give an update on the application then that the MPO is submitted that we're going to go for vote on?
Yes, so EMTA did apply, and the Technical Advisory Committee did vote to recommend funding the study to the coordinating committee. So if the coordinating committee would like to assign funds, they can make them, someone can make a motion now.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
You're welcome. Do I have a second?
Can I ask what this motion is?
To approve study funding for EMTA's public EV charging power needs study. So it's approving the transportation study funding.
The study covers just the study,
the study.
Downtown at the intermodal and at our 14th Street.
There's a pretty good explanation on the back page of the handout here as far as the application that Dave has provided. Do you have a second? I think.
Second.
Yep, Leanne with a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And it looks like we have some waiting to be admitted to the meeting if possible.
And we have a question.
Yes.
The remainder of that fund, is that still available to people this year to access, or was there a time? And I'll just go back to what Dave Mitchell was putting before us last time at the TAC, that he was looking at a larger study. I had originally, my idea was to do all of Erie County, but the price was going to be beyond our means. So I just was wondering whether or not, if our study proves fruitful and helpful, as I'm sure it will, that others might want to tap that plan money. I didn't know what the status of that money is.
Yeah, actually, can you go down? Here we go, the UPWP budget. I know it's kind of small, but so there is $80,000 available, and your study was only $30,000. So there is $50,000 in that line item left. So in conversations with Mill Creek and also the city of Erie, they were interested in potentially looking at some sites as well in their areas, doing the same thing, to look at assessment of power needs, because it's a good idea to look at this. So what I was going to have another vote on after this was to approve the budget, the UPWP budget, to have $80,000 just remain in that line item. So if the city and Mill Creek would like to add on to that study and look at some additional locations, the money would be there. And it would expire, there is an expiration date. It would expire June 30th of 2024. So it would have to be spent by that.
That's a spend date.
Yes, spend date.
Okay, so the next motion then would be to extend that or carry that money forward.
Yes.
To then expire June 30th of 2024.
Yes.
But available to Mill Creek, Erie, whoever may submit an application, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I'll make that.
All right, David for the motion. Do I have a second?
Again, this motion is just
for study.
Study.
And actually, it's just to keep their funds available for more applications, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I got an issue with all of this because the batteries are made in China, which is the most polluted country in the world. No place to dispose of them at this time. The monies it takes to build these batteries and dispose of them cost more money or more, pollution than the batteries save during the whole time that they're in a car. So, you know, I got a little issue with throwing money away towards this type of stuff.
Right, I hear you loud and clear, Ron. I mean, but this funding is for specific projects as well, correct, Emily?
Yeah, I'll say so. The MPO receives transportation planning funds every 2 years called the Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP funds. So the state has basically allocated us funds, and I put out a call for applications if any municipalities would like to do a study for these funds. So honestly, the only application we received was for EV charging. So if there is another need you think is a higher priority, you're welcome to apply for these funds for a transportation study in any municipality.
I have no objection with studying to try and improve. I just
certainly. Yep, understood. And once again, this second vote is just for that money to remain available for other applications, not specifically to EMTA's request or something like that. So yeah, just to make it available as well still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I had a motion by Dave. All right, do I have a second? I'll second. All right, Ryan with second. Any other discussion? Thank you, Ron, for your input. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, great, thank you. Moving on to agenda number 8, agenda item number 8, local use fee subcommittee, the permanent.
Actually, I have one more thing on the UPW budget.
You know what? Look at the,
I apologize.
the updated agenda. All right, moving on, sorry.
One little thing. So the city of Erie received transportation study funds for the 12th Street Reimagined project that Kathy Rosdick applied for. If you remember way back when Kathy was still in the city, because of the staff turnover, Kathy leaving, and different just capacity issues at the city, they haven't started the study yet. So this amended budget would move all of their funds. They were awarded $125,000. So it would move that $125,000 completely into year 2. So between July 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024. So in order to amend the budget to move all of those funds to year 2, we would need a vote.
We have a motion to move on. Basically just moving the funding out.
Yes.
I'll make a motion. Motion, second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty, thank you. May I move on now?
Yeah.
Okay, the Leanne Foreman show.
Okay, the $5 local use fee subcommittee met April 12th to discuss allocating funds. We made recommendations to the technical advisory committee, and the technical advisory committee has 2 recommendations. The first is to allocate $1,751,173 for the construction of the Coppa Avenue Bridge. Jason Sayers is here if anybody has any questions regarding the project.
I'll just say the project remains on schedule and on budget, and we've had a recent meeting with some of the key stakeholders. Any questions? I'll be glad to.
Before we call for a vote, does anybody have any questions of Jason regarding Coppa Bridge?
No real price increases recently or anything?
No, our consultant's been checking the estimates quite regularly, and we're still on budget. So.
All right, great. So I'll call for a motion on the allocation of the 1.7 for the Coppa Avenue Bridge project.
I'll make that motion.
Second by Bill. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
So the second recommendation is for 6 local bridges that need waterproof membranes, and so we're going to bundle those together. That is approximately $518,960. That's going to be using 2024 tip funds. The 6 bridges are Generally Road Bridge and Ferris Road Bridge, Evans Road Bridge on Mill Creek, Hannah Hall Bridge in Menango, Old Lake Road Bridge in Springfield, Falls Road Bridge in Franklin. And each of those will have a 5% local match.
Any questions of Emily? I think as she's going through the list, you can see that this $5 registration fee is being spread out throughout the entire county, which is kind of a focus of it. How many years ago was this enacted?
2018.
2018. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. Good comment on the project. No questions of Leanne. I'll call for a motion. We're on a motion. A second?
Second.
Jason. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, great. Moving on to agency updates. Who got the short straw and is going to get a PennDOT update?
But I do want to say we have other PennDOT guests here. Probably many of you know them, but Jim Schott in the back in the blue shirt is the Erie County Maintenance Manager, and Nate Nunez is the Assistant Construction Engineer. So questions about projects and construction, Nate would be able to answer better than probably Mark Courtney or myself. And Jim's team is always out and about. Just passed them on the way here, doing some ditching on 79. So they got a full plate this summer as well. So, but anyways, I think Mark, you're probably leading off, right?
Didn't want to know if you wanted to take the honor to talk about the Bayfront.
Yeah, I'll say a few things quickly. The Bayfront Parkway project has been advertised for bids, so we are very excited. That's a milestone that you work towards. It's the turning point from design to construction really in this time. So we've had preliminary plans available for several months now, which is something that is common to do when you have a complex project, while we were still finalizing those Holland Street pedestrian bridge plans. So that's what has the consultant team, which also included a peer reviewer for that, has been working on over the last, I would say, 8 or 9 months, and it's complete. It's out there for bids. Right now we have a pre-bid meeting scheduled for Monday, June 26th next week, and we'll be opening bids on July 13th. So we're all hopeful. We did some updates to the estimate at the very last minute, which is what created the need for that amendment that was discussed earlier. Those bids or those estimates are always evolving and changing throughout the life of design, all the way up to the point where you're ready to put it out for advertisements. Always trying to get that estimate as close to the bids that you expect to come in. It's a crazy time as far as bidding goes for construction projects. So we'll see what we see when bids are open, but we're really excited to be where we are. It's been a long time, a lot of good work, a lot of collaboration from lots of entities, many represented here today, and a lot of votes were needed through the MPO throughout this process. A lot of extra money, as I've said in the past, coming into the Erie region because of this project, as far as discretionary funding and federal grants and the build grant. So it's a big deal, and we're excited for it.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Just because many of us haven't worked on this level of a project.
Yeah.
Like if things go well, July 13th, you give a notice to proceed. I mean, what?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're hoping 2024 there's.
Correct. Yeah. Usually we'll have the let date is July 13th. There's about 6 weeks after that before we give the notice to proceed. So that's just to award the contract, execute the contract, make sure that the contractor and all their subs have what's needed, everything is in place. Then 6 weeks later, which puts us in about, where are we, end of August?
End of August.
Yeah. Notice to proceed, which means, we do expect the contractor to get started right away. There's been a lot of utility coordination and things like that going on, but our schedule shows them starting construction immediately. We always have just to remind everybody, we create and design a pre-bid construction schedule of and we have construction experts and a whole team to look at that project of how we expect a contractor is likely to build it. They're certainly allowed to propose changes to that schedule. Sometimes contractors come in with a much more aggressive schedule, sometimes not. Sometimes they see benefits to phasing it in a different way, and we'll just keep the public and everybody apprised of any changes as they come. Yeah.
I can give an update.
Oh, hang on. Got another question by Ron.
Question: 99 is closed off at the bridge over the thruway. Hershey Road, or I'm sorry, not Hershey Road. Bargain Road is scheduled to be shut down soon. And now we get a notice that next week they're going to close 99 at Niagara Plastics, which means Hershey Road now will not be available to get to Drumroad, to get to McCain or any place south. How long is 99 gonna be closed off and 90 plastics?
I can help you with that. We actually already got 99 shut down on 6/19 from plastic shop. It'll be open by 7/2 with a 2-week shutdown to replace the culvert. And then at that point, you were talking about Bargain Road and the other 99 job. That Bargain Road job will start 7/10. So there'll be a week in between that, between 99 North being open and then Bargain Road shut down. And obviously the 699 project over 90, that's going to be a full construction season, so that will be open till the end of the season. So unfortunately, there's an issue with the box culvert after that 99 project, the big one over 90. There's an issue with the box culvert.
The one at 90 plastics is only gonna be a couple of weeks long.
Yeah, July 2nd, it'll be open.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Nate. Mark.
I can go over a few more projects before we move on. If you all remember earlier this summer, we opened up bids for Niemeyer Road. Those bids came in much higher than what we had budgeted or anticipated. That project's been re-advertised for bids, and we have a new let date of July 13th. So our fingers are crossed that we'll get a better bid for that project, and we can update more on that after the bids come in. The Erie Loop Bikeway for Green Garden Boulevard is scheduled also to let in July. The Route 20 from Zuck to Chestnut is also scheduled to let later in July. That's primarily surfacing and signals. I think that's a contract. 531, we've been talking about that. The Depot Road, that's also on track to let later this year, November, December timeframe. The Bayfront Parkway, excuse me, at 6th Street, the 4034 SOO project, that's scheduled to let later in August, towards the end of August. And then looking on to the last lets of this year and going into next year, we did have a few projects worth noting. The Bayfront Parkway and Cranberry intersection, that's scheduled to let at the end of this year for that signal at that intersection. The April newsletter that we sent out pretty much covered projects that we had already given up updates on. So if anybody has any questions about what was on that newsletter or needs any information, more information than what I provided, I could answer those questions. We also have a couple of bridges that are in the works for next year's program. Those are also over I-90. Those are the Cherry, Hammett, and I think Bargain Road over I-90 bridges. Those are being designed by our in-house staff. You'll see those in the next newsletter that comes out. They're scheduled for an early spring 2024 let at this time. That's what I have. If anybody has any questions, I'd be going to try and answer.
Where's the Niemeyer Road bridge?
Waterford Township?
Yeah.
It's the historic covered bridge.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Courtney, any update? Anything now?
I just wanted to let everybody know that the plan is that we will be presenting at the next TAC and coordinating committee meeting potential projects on the 25 to 28 tip. So look forward to that coming up in the next couple meetings.
Excellent. Those in attendance, we won't let PennDOT leave until you caught them and pushed them up against the wall and got all the information we need from them. So those online, sorry. But we'll move on. Federal updates is Ronique or Abby.
Ronique should be on.
Ronique,
can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Yep. And can you guys hear me? I'm assuming yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. So I do have some updates. And I'll provide these through email as well, because there's like some links and all of that good stuff. So kind of wanted to first piggyback off, well, not piggyback, but go off of some of the previous discussions that were made earlier in the meeting. I know earlier you guys were discussing the carbon reduction funds. So as the MPO and PennDOT talk about how to program these funds, definitely bring federal highways into the conversation. There's some, since the CRP program is new, and there's some things with the eligibility of the use of CRP funds that may not be as intuitive or easy to, decipher or explain. So yeah, just bring us in on those conversations. So we can kind of coordinate early on that and answer any questions that you guys may have. So just wanted to let you guys know about that. And then also, in addition to the local climate action plan that was presented earlier, I also wanted to let the MPO and others know about a recent tool. It's a free tool. It can be used by anyone on how to quantify energy and greenhouse gas emissions. So the tool itself is called the Infrastructure Carbon Estimator, ICE for short. And I have a link to that. And I also have a link to a video. It's about an hour long, but it goes through how to use the tool. It seems pretty easy and intuitive to use, but the study was funded by multiple organizations, including departments of transportations in California, Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, New York, and Texas, Washington State as well. The tool itself is hosted on I want to say the Minnesota DOT website, but it's available for anybody to use if they think that would be helpful in any planning decisions, or if you just wanted to interact with it and see how it may help you guys at any stage when it comes to estimating greenhouse gas emissions. So wanted to put that out there. Another thing that I wanted to bring up to your attention is the DOT Equity Action Plan. There is a request for information out for folks to put in their public comments to inform the annual update to this equity plan. And so that RFI will be open until June 30th. So we're encouraging everybody to read it if you haven't already, and to provide any comments. And also a virtual dialogue will be held on the DOT Equity Action Plan on June 23rd from 1 to 3 on Zoom. So I have the registration link. If anybody is available and would like to attend that, you are definitely certainly welcome. Their Federal Highways has some new bicycle and pedestrian guidance that was recently released. I have a link for that, and in the guidance, it also provides bicycle and pedestrian funding opportunities and some planning and design resources that state and local agencies can use to address safety and connectivity among different modes of travel. We have another new tool. It's a lot of new resources and things like that. I understand it's overwhelming, but definitely want to let you guys know of everything that you guys have at your disposal. We have the Equitable Transportation Community Explorer tool. It's an interactive web application that uses the recent 2020 census tracks and data to explore what the I guess cumulative burden would be on communities as a result of underinvestment in transportation. So it looks at different 5 different factors that would affect different communities, and it's hosted on ArcGIS. I have a link for that. So if you experience with ArcGIS in the past, this should be pretty easy to interact with. Let me see. Oh, yeah, and to you guys, I know you guys were talking about the EV power needs study. Last month, the US DOT published electric mobility toolkits for urban and rural communities. And the toolkit will help to identify key partners for an electric charging project, also reveal any relevant planning tools or available funding and finance opportunities. So yeah, the toolkit is good for communities to look through as you guys talk about progression towards electric vehicle readiness. Let me see, there's a lot of NOFOs that are out and upcoming, and those that are closing here in the very near future. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Let me see, some already passed, so I'm trying to go through. The Safe Streets and Roads for All discretionary grant is accepting applications until July 10th. The Wildlife Crossing pilot program, the NOFO is out and on that, and the deadline is August 1st. And then for on August 18th, that's the deadline for the Protect Notice of Funding Opportunity. And last but not least, there is a discretionary grants dashboard. It's a new online tool that makes it easier for folks to find grant opportunities based on different filters. So you can essentially go on this tool, put in the different filters that you want, and it'll bring up grants or discretionary grants that best fit, the criteria that you put in. So, and then also, I think I mentioned this before, but there's a calendar of open and upcoming grant opportunities. I have a link to that. So it's basically a table that has all the information in front of you that talks about the grants that are upcoming and the current ones as well. So you can kind of keep track on all the opportunities that are coming up. So I think that's everything. I will send this out to Emily for her to send out to everybody. There's a lot of good information. So yeah, and thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I don't believe Abby is online. So we can skip over FTA. And let me know if you have any questions. I know that was a lot of information, but just let me know. And as always, you can email me as well, or go through the state. Brandon can also relay information to me as well. So, or Emily.
Great, thank you, Roni. And
quick question.
We got one question for you. Hang on.
Yep.
That toolkit for ED preparations, was that on the DOE site or the DOT site?
That is on, I want to say it's on, here, I'm looking it up. It's on transportation.gov. It's on the US Department of Transportation webpage. So yeah, it's on a federal webpage. So
okay. And you had mentioned you'll get the links to Emily and she can forward them on to the members?
Yep.
Okay,
I'll do that right after this meeting. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Ronnie. Appreciate your time. Okay, Brandon, did you have any more updates?
Oh, I got a tough act to follow, but yeah, I got a few updates there. And in the same manner as Ronique, I'll have applicable links to send out to everyone so they can see more information, and I can even stay around, in the interest of time, to kind of show people where those links are if you'd rather just see them here live. So, but anyway, just to update, I know we've been talking last couple meetings about the 2023 like 12-year program survey period that I hope everyone was able to take the survey, but those results came out last week and they're posted on the Talk PA Transportation website. You can go in, and I'll have the link sent out for that too. You can go in and find basically any MPO in the state. It has it broken down by the MPOs, RPOs. So if you go to Erie's, it'll give you a breakdown of what the results were this year, a comparison from this year to the 2021 survey period, as well as there's an interactive map where if people elected to put concerns on the map, you can go and see what those results were broken down by like modal type, if it was bike ped, you know, just safety, other categories like that. So just an update on that. And as well, as part of a pilot program this year, the TYP sections kept open the survey up until September 30th of this year. So if anyone wasn't able to take it during the official public comment period, you can still allow your opinions to be heard. I think they just want to get an understanding of if it's worthwhile to keep it open over the span of like, 9 months as opposed to just like a 30-day or 45-day period. So that's still open. I'll have that link out as well if anyone still wants to take that survey. Good deal. Also with the, I know District 1 had their session a while ago, but all the PennDOT Connect's municipal outreach sessions have ended, and on the Connect's webpage on the PennDOT website, there's a listing of all the recordings as well as the different toolkit items that were shared during the survey or during the presentations. If you didn't have a chance to get on them, you can go on and see them retroactively. So I'll have that out as well. And the last update I have, because I believe we have the TA set aside part, so I'll let you mention it. All right. So I saw that one as other business, so I wasn't going to talk. But so the 2045 freight movement plan has been officially updated. PennDOT updates this in conjunction with their statewide long range plan, and this provides information to the state. Provides information on the state of Pennsylvania's freight infrastructure and PennDOT's efforts to continually improve the safe and effective movement of freight statewide. Once we have an approved plan, this ensures that Pennsylvania remains eligible for roughly $58 million in federal funding for the National Highway Freight Program funding through 2026. So that's online as well, and I'll also share that link if anyone wants to see the full program or get more information on that. And yeah, the last update I was just going to share, if you don't mind, Emily, Transportation Alternative Set Aside Program. That application period is open. It opened on May 30th. If I recall, you had some information sent out to the MPO, I believe, back when that opened. I get them mixed up because I think all the other MPOs send it out usually. So, but in case you weren't aware, it was open on May 30th. Again, like if you're not familiar, TA Set Aside provides funding for projects related to pedestrian bicycle facilities, access to public transit, and safe routes to school. So that period's open, and there is a requirement that anyone interested needs to submit basically a draft application by July 17th for district review, and after review, final applications need to be submitted by September 15th of this year. And in addition, on that webpage, which I'll share that link as well, an informational webinar was made available on May 24th, but that's also available online if anyone wants to see that to understand more about the application process. So that being said, were there any questions regarding those or anything else you'd like to know?
In looking at the fact that the TASA application period is open and that draft applications need to be turned in by the middle of July, we want to highly recommend that if there is a project that is going to be going through your community and you guys are interested in looking at any additional work that maybe you would like to have done through what would normally be done through a PennDOT Connects communication. So if you're looking at upgrading things, you want different light posts, or you're looking at bike or pedestrian improvements, anything like that, that you guys look at applying for those CASA funds to be able to contribute towards the project to cover those expenses. With the increase that we are seeing in funding we are getting from the TIP, it's still not going to offset the needs, as well as the looking at the 15% inflation that we've been seeing. So we really would like to see applications being submitted, and we'll support them to be able to offset the costs that you guys would like to for additions that you guys would like in your projects. So if you have any questions, right now our tentative look at projects that are upcoming aren't really changing from what the current TIP is. We're just looking at advancing those. So if you had a project that was coming in the next couple of years, please look at what maybe you guys would be able to, and we can do it as a contribution agreement where for those improvements in the project, we enter into an agreement just like we would do for local federal aid routes, where instead of any money necessarily coming out of the municipality or a reimbursement program where you guys would have to do the actual contract, you're just giving us permission to spend that TASA money on your behalf for those items that you would like in your project. So I just would like to put forth the petition for that.
And the nice thing about TASA is that it's 100% construction. So there's no local match for construction. So if design is needed, then the municipality would have to pay for design, but it's 100% construction, which is very nice. You don't have that on a lot of grants.
Would that include the streetlights if you were putting streetlights in?
I think it would, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And it's only open every 2 years. It's not an annual cycle. So if you have something that you're thinking about, you'd have to wait another 2 years after this to apply again.
Okay. Thank you very much. Some agency updates from EMTA. Dave, did you have anything else you wanted to add for today?
Sure, a few things. Our ridership is rebounding nicely. We're almost to about 75% pre-COVID levels. We had the best February, March, and April that we've had in 3 years. In over 100 to 125,000 rides a month. That's just on the fixed route. Yesterday, we had the architects and engineers up from CDM Smith to begin the efforts on our finishing our parking ramp and creating that retail space on the first floor on 14th Street. The Veterans City, the City of Erie's Office of Veterans has moved over to the intermodal, and we've gotten tremendous feedback from veterans that the space is so much better. They've got more room. It's less hectic, and you're out of the courthouse, I think, where they were before. And I mentioned that simply because our first tenant to the space in our intermodal is going to be the Bowden Gardens Initiative, which is a veteran-focused initiative that's supported widely by the VA, by the city's VA, by AHN Network, City Redevelopment, ARP funds, etc. And it's going to be an aquaponic grow facility, which meets our priority, which was to put fresh food in that food desert between 14th and Parade. So a lot of good things are happening. And I just want to thank everybody for supporting our studies.
Great. Thanks, Dave. I believe Derek Martin is going to join us for a airport update as well.
Good morning. How's everyone today? Just to give a little background before I give the update, because there's a lot of misinformation going on. So in 2009, Northwest Airlines and Delta merged. They merged, they had 500 CRJ 200 series aircraft. Those were the planes that were flying in and out of Erie. They made a corporate business decision way back when to get rid of those aircrafts because they were not economical, and they had a replacement plan in place. As we all know, the global pandemic started in March of 2020. In April of 2019, the airport had over 16,000 passengers go through. In April of 2020, we had less than 800. So we were averaging like 14 passengers a day. So sometimes we had more crew than passengers. And because Delta had a plan to get rid of that aircraft, in July of 2020, we lost the Delta service to Detroit. Fast forward a couple weeks ago, United Airlines ceased service at Erie as well. That was driven by the same thing. From Delta's perspective, there's a lack of pilots and a lack of planes that are economical to fly into small communities. Almost 100 communities have lost air service to the United States. With that being said, the airport has been working diligently to try to bring a low-cost carrier to offer nonstop service to Florida. We've submitted a proposal to American Airlines to continue to operate out of the Erie Airport for 2 more years, and we're asking them to add another frequency to Charlotte, increase the size of their aircraft, as well as resume the service that they had to Chicago in the summer of 2019. The proposal is working its way through the management at American Airlines for all the sign-offs, and we hope to have that by the 2nd week of July, that being completed. So that's where we are right now. The airport's operating currently with 2 flights a day to Charlotte on American, and the planes are going out at 100% full. As well as when United left Erie or announced they're leaving, the airport was operating at a 90% load factor. American was at 96.3, and I think United was like 87%. So we're filling the seats that we have with the people that are flying in and out of Erie. We just don't have enough seats, and we're working on that.
Very well. Thank you, Derek, for the update. It's nice to get it straight from the authority. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions for Derek? No. Okay. All right. Derek, thanks again for joining us. And, please, as things move on and you have more updates, you're always welcome to provide them to us as well.
Thank you.
All righty. You have a great day.
You too.
All right, Emily, there's no other agencies for updates, is there? Okay. Brandon kind of covered the transportation alternatives set asides. Draft application is due middle of July.
Yep.
Okay. Emily, then the last thing is visit Erie, correct? And
yes.
Oh, there you go.
I really wanted to briefly share that we are having an eclipse April 8th, 2024. I'm sure most people already know about this. Visit Erie is organizing efforts. So if you have an event going on in your community, please let Visit Erie know to try to coordinate these events. There was an entire presentation that Visit Erie sent over. You're welcome to look through that, but it's coming on April 8th, 2024. It'll be very dark in Erie.
Very crowded too.
Yes, probably very crowded.
Definitely. Okay. Any other hearing of the public now? All right. I do want to once again thank Brandon and Julia for joining us. Appreciate it. Don't make yourself strangers. Welcome in Erie whenever you can. Sarah and Jenny as well. Thank you for your information. Representatives of PennDOT as well. If nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Okay.
I know.